You know that moment when you realize you've been an idiot? When your stomach drops and you finally see what everyone else probably saw from the beginning. When you're standing there like, how did I not see this coming? Yeah, that's happening to you more than you think. That coworker who's always so helpful, they're collecting information about you. That friend who always needs just one more favor, they've got you mapped out like a GPS. That person who tells you you're too sensitive when you call them out, they're training you to shut up and take it. You think you're being nice. They think you're being stupid. And the really messed up part? You probably are smart. Like, actually intelligent. You can spot a scam email from a mile away. You can tell when politicians are lying. You can see right through those fake limited time offer ads. But put a human being in front of you, someone who knows how to smile at the right moment and say, I'm sorry you feel that way. And suddenly your brain just stops working. It's like you have this weird blind spot for manipulation when it comes wrapped in a nice package. You can detect bullshit in every other area of your life, but when someone looks you in the eyes and feeds you a line, you swallow it whole. Want to know why? Because you're reading their words while they're reading your soul. They know that if they cry, you'll comfort them. If they flatter you, you'll drop your guard. If they play victim, you'll feel guilty. If they get angry, you'll apologize. They've got your emotional responses mapped out like a video game cheat code. And every time you react exactly how they predicted, they level up. Every time you fall for the same tricks, they get better at using them. Every time you ignore that voice in your head saying something's not right here, you train yourself to be the perfect victim. The person reading this right now, you've got someone in your life who's playing you. Someone who knows exactly which buttons to push. Someone who's probably laughing about how easy you are to handle. And until you learn to see what they see, it's never going to stop. You keep doing the same thing that gets you burned every single time. You listen to what people say instead of watching what they do. You focus on their explanations instead of their patterns. You believe their tears instead of tracking their behavior. You trust their promises instead of studying their history. And every single time, you act shocked when they show you who they really are. But here's what's really going to blow your mind. They're not even good liars. They're just performing for an audience that refuses to see the show. You know how actors can make you cry during a movie, even though you know it's fake? That's because they understand something about human psychology that you don't. They know which emotional buttons to press. They know how to make their performance feel real. They know exactly what you want to see and hear. Now imagine that same skill being used on you in real life. By people who want something from you. By people who need you to believe their version of events. By people who benefit from you staying confused and off balance. The problem isn't that you're too trusting. The problem is that you're reading their script instead of their psychology. You're watching their performance instead of studying the person behind the mask. Because what people show you is calculated. What they say is rehearsed. What they want you to focus on is designed to distract you from what they're actually doing. Think about it. That person who hurt you, they didn't just wake up one day and decide to screw you over. They tested you first. Little boundary pushes. Small lies to see if you call them out. Tiny manipulations to see how you'd react. And when you passed their tests, when you stayed quiet, when you made excuses for them, when you gave them the benefit of the doubt, they knew they had you. Nietzsche figured this out over a century ago. He wasn't trying to make people paranoid or cynical. He was trying to wake them up to something that could save their lives. People will always show you who they are, but they'll hide it behind who they pretend to be. And if you keep reading the pretense instead of the person, you'll keep getting played by the same type of people over and over until you're too broken to trust anyone, including yourself. When you can't read people, you don't just miss opportunities. You become everyone's favorite target. Look at your life. Really look at it. How many times did someone completely blindside you after months of acting like your best friend? How many times did you walk into a situation thinking everything was fine, only to discover people have been talking about you behind your back the whole time? How many times did you trust someone's sob story, only to find out later they were running the same con on 5 other people? How many times did you ignore that weird feeling in your gut because their words sounded so convincing? How many times did you make excuses for someone's behavior because you wanted to believe they were good? How many times did you get manipulated by someone who seemed so genuine, so wounded, so different from all the others? And here's the question that's really going to sting. How many times did other people see it coming? How many times did someone try to warn you and you defended the person who was playing you? How many times did you call someone else paranoid or negative for seeing what you refuse to see? That's not you being a good person. That's you being psychologically illiterate in a world full of people who can read you like a children's book. Every time you got played, there were signs. Every time someone showed their true colors, they've been showing you hints for weeks. Every time you said, "I never saw that coming," you actually did see it coming. You just talked yourself out of believing it. Because you were reading their words while they were reading your psychology. You were listening to their explanations while they were studying your reactions. You were giving them the benefit of the doubt while they were calculating exactly how much they could get away with. And the really brutal part? They probably weren't even that good at hiding it. You just weren't looking for the right things. You were so busy trying to see the good in people that you made yourself blind to everything else. That's why the same types of people keep finding you. That's why you keep having the same conversations, the same arguments, the same heartbreaks with different faces. Because manipulators can spot psychological blindness from across the room. You're not unlucky. You're uneducated. And every day you stay that way, someone else is getting ready to take advantage of it. Nietzsche saw this happening everywhere, in politics, in relationships, in every conversation between two people. He watched humans perform for each other and realized something that most people spend their entire lives missing. Everyone is lying, but they're all telling the truth about who they really are. Sounds confusing? It's not. People can't help but reveal themselves. It's literally impossible for humans to hide their true psychology for extended periods of time. It always leaks out. The problem is, you've been taught to ignore the leakage and focus on the performance. People don't show you who they are. They show you who they need to be to get what they want from you. But here's the beautiful part. The act of pretending actually reveals more about someone than if they were just being honest. When someone lies to you, they're showing you they think you're stupid enough to believe it. When someone manipulates you, they're showing you they see you as a resource, not a person. When someone plays victim, they're showing you they've learned that helplessness gets them power. The mask is the message. Nietzsche didn't become cynical about human nature. He became realistic. He stopped reading people's words and started reading their psychology. He stopped believing their stories and started tracking their patterns. He stopped giving people the benefit of the doubt and started giving himself the benefit of protection. And you know what he discovered? Most people are incredibly predictable once you understand their core programming. The person who always needs to be the victim, they'll find a way to be victimized in every situation. The person who can't take responsibility, they'll blame everyone else for everything that goes wrong. The person who uses emotional manipulation, they'll cry, rage, or guilt trip their way out of every corner. It's like watching the same movie over and over, just with different actors. But once you learn to see the patterns instead of falling for the performance, something magical happens. You stop being surprised by people's behavior. You stop getting hurt by predictable betrayals. You stop wasting time on people who are never going to change. Because you finally understand the difference between who someone pretends to be and who they actually are. And that difference is everything. And reading people doesn't mean becoming some cold, calculating psychopath who sees everyone as an enemy. It doesn't mean you stop trusting people or turn into one of those bitter people who think everyone's out to get them. It means you finally start seeing people clearly instead of seeing what you want to see. Look, you can still be a good person. You can still be kind, generous, and caring. But you can do all of that while also being smart about who deserves your kindness and who's just trying to exploit it. Think about it like this. You probably lock your car doors, right? Not because you hate all people, but because you know some people will steal your stuff if given the chance. You probably don't give your credit card number to random strangers who call you, right? Not because you're paranoid, but because you know some people will rob you blind. So why do you give your trust, your time, your emotional energy to people without doing any kind of background check on their character? Real psychological insight isn't about assuming everyone's evil. It's about watching what people do when they think no one's looking. It's about noticing patterns in their behavior. It's about paying attention to how they treat people who can't do anything for them. It's about learning the difference between someone who's genuinely struggling and someone who uses struggle as a weapon. Between someone who made a mistake and someone who makes the same mistake over and over again. Between someone who's sorry and someone who's sorry they got caught. Most people reveal their true character within the first few interactions, but you've been trained to ignore the data and focus on their potential. You've been taught to see people as who they could become instead of who they're showing you they are right now. But here's the thing that's going to change your life. People don't hide who they are because they're ashamed of it. They hide who they are because they know you won't like it. And if you won't like it, you might protect yourself from it. So they show you a version of themselves that you will like. A version that makes you feel safe. A version that makes you drop your guard. And awareness protects you better than hope ever will. So what are these psychological truths that Nietzsche figured out? What are the secrets that some people use to read you like a book while you're stumbling around in the dark? Here's the thing, they're not actually secrets. They're just things that most people are too polite, too distracted, or too hopeful to notice. But once you start seeing them, you'll wonder how you lived your whole life being this blind. Truth number one. People tell you who they are in the first 5 minutes, but they spend the next 5 years trying to convince you they're someone else. You know that feeling when you meet someone and something feels off? Not necessarily bad, just off. That's your brain picking up on micro signals that your conscious mind hasn't processed yet. Their smile doesn't quite reach their eyes. Their story has weird gaps in it. They ask too many personal questions too quickly. They seem a little too interested in what you can do for them. But then they spend the next few months being so charming, so helpful, so understanding that you forget about that first impression. You tell yourself you were being judgmental. You convince yourself you were wrong. But you weren't wrong. You were right. That first impression was your brain doing what it's supposed to do. Quickly assessing whether someone is safe or dangerous, honest or manipulative, genuine or performing. The problem is, you've been taught to override your instincts in favor of giving people chances. And manipulative people know this. They know that if they can get past your initial radar, they can spend months building trust while slowly revealing their true agenda. That's why your gut feeling about someone in the first few minutes is usually more accurate than your opinion of them after months of interaction. Because in those first few minutes, they haven't had time to build their mask yet. They haven't figured out exactly what you want to see. They're just being themselves. And themselves is exactly who they warned you they were. Truth number two. Watch how people treat others when they think you're not paying attention. This one's huge. And it's so simple that you'll kick yourself for not doing it sooner. You want to know who someone really is? Don't watch how they treat you, especially in the beginning. Of course they're nice to you. You're the target. You're the person they want something from. They're on their best behavior. Instead, watch how they treat the waiter, the Uber driver, the person who made a mistake on their order, their ex, their family, people who can't do anything for them, or people who they think don't matter. That's who they really are. I learned this the hard way with a friend who seemed incredibly sweet and caring, always asking how I was doing, always there when I needed to vent, always so understanding about my problems. Then one day, I watched her absolutely destroy a cashier who accidentally rang up the wrong price. I'm talking full-on public humiliation over $2. And I realized she's not a nice person who occasionally loses her temper. She's a mean person who's really good at pretending to be nice when it benefits her. People can fake kindness for a while, but they can't fake their automatic reactions to frustration. They can't fake how they talk about people who aren't in the room. They can't fake their body language when they think no one important is watching. You know what else they can't fake? How they handle power. Give someone even a tiny bit of authority, like being a group leader or having someone ask them for a favor, and their true personality comes out fast. The person who becomes a micromanaging control freak the second they're in charge. That's who they've always been. The person who holds grudges and makes people pay for past mistakes. That's their real character. The person who gossips about everyone to you? Yeah, they're gossiping about you to everyone else. Stop watching their highlight reel. Start watching their behind-the-scenes footage, because that's where the truth lives. Truth number 3. People who constantly tell you how honest they are, aren't. This one's going to save you so much time and heartache. Anyone who has to keep telling you what a good person they are is probably not a good person. Think about it. Do you go around telling people how honest you are? Of course not. Because actually honest people don't need to advertise it. Their actions speak for themselves. But liars? They know they're lying. And they know that somewhere in your brain, you might be picking up on it. So they overcorrect. They work extra hard to convince you they're trustworthy. They say things like, "I'm not the type of person who would," or "You know me, I would never," or "I'm just being honest with you." Real honesty doesn't need a sales pitch. Truth number 4. Pay attention to how quickly people try to isolate you from your support system. Manipulative people know they can't control you if you have other people giving you perspective. So they'll start small. They'll make little comments about your friends. Are you sure they have your best interests at heart? They seem kind of jealous of you. I don't think they really understand you like I do. Or they'll create drama that forces you to choose sides. Or they'll monopolize all your time so you drift away from other relationships naturally. If someone in your life is slowly turning you against everyone else in your life, that's not love. That's strategy. Truth number 5. People who play victim are usually the aggressor. This one's gonna mess with your head because it goes against everything you've been taught about being compassionate. But hear me out. You know that person in your life who's always got some drama going on? Always being wronged by someone? Always the innocent victim of other people's cruelty? Nothing is ever their fault? Yeah, they're usually the problem. Real victims don't make being a victim their entire personality. They don't collect tragic stories like trading cards. They don't compete with other people's pain. And they definitely don't use their victim status to manipulate people into doing things for them. But professional victims? They've figured out that helplessness is power. They know that good people will bend over backwards to help someone who's been hurt. They know that if they make you feel guilty enough, you'll give them whatever they want. Watch what happens when you stop rescuing them. Watch how quickly the helpless victim turns into an angry aggressor when you don't play along with their game anymore. Truth number 6. Someone who gossips to you will gossip about you. This is so obvious, it's embarrassing that people still fall for it. But somehow, when someone's telling you juicy secrets about other people, you think you're special. You think you're the exception. You think they would never betray your trust like they're betraying everyone else's. Newsflash, you're not special. You're just next. People who can't keep other people's secrets can't keep yours either. People who talk trash about their friends to you are talking trash about you to their friends. People who break confidences don't suddenly develop integrity when it comes to your confidences. And here's the really twisted part. They're not just entertaining you with gossip. They're testing you. They want to see if you'll participate. They want to see if you'll share secrets too. Because then they've got something on you. Truth number 7. Actions that don't match words aren't accidents. They're reveals. Stop making excuses for people whose behavior doesn't line up with what they tell you. When someone shows you who they are through their actions, believe them. When their words say one thing, but their behavior says something else, the behavior is always the truth. That person who says they care about you, but never shows up when you need them, they don't care about you. That person who says they want to change, but keeps doing the same destructive things, they don't want to change. That person who says they're sorry, but keeps repeating the same hurtful behavior, they're not sorry. Stop reading their script. Start watching their movie. There's a fine line between reading people and becoming paranoid, between being psychologically aware and turning into one of those people who sees manipulation everywhere they look. Because here's what happens when you first start seeing these patterns. You go a little crazy. Suddenly you're analyzing every interaction. You're second-guessing every conversation. You're wondering if that person who complimented your shirt was trying to butter you up for something. And if you're not careful, you can swing too far in the other direction. You can become so suspicious that you start seeing threats where there aren't any. You can become so focused on protecting yourself that you stop connecting with people altogether. You can turn into the kind of person who thinks everyone's out to get them. That's not awareness. That's paranoia. And paranoid people are just as easy to manipulate as naive people. They're just manipulated by different tactics. On the flip side, some people learn to read psychology and then think they should use it to manipulate others. They figure if everyone else is playing games, they might as well play too. They start using people's insecurities against them. They start pulling the same tricks that were used on them. But here's the problem with that approach. When you become manipulative, you attract manipulative people. When you play games, you end up surrounded by game players. When you use psychology as a weapon, everyone becomes your enemy. The solution isn't paranoia or manipulation. It's strategic awareness. Strategic awareness means you see people clearly, but you don't let that knowledge turn you bitter. You protect yourself without becoming cruel. You recognize patterns without assuming everyone's running the same pattern. You learn to trust your gut without becoming suspicious of everyone. You learn to set boundaries without becoming hostile. You learn to see through people's masks without feeling like you need to wear one yourself. Because the goal isn't to become untouchable. The goal is to become unmanipulatable. There's a difference. Untouchable people end up alone. Unmanipulatable people end up surrounded by genuine connections. When you can read people accurately, you stop wasting time on the wrong people and start investing in the right ones. You stop falling for surface-level charm and start recognizing real character. You stop being fooled by performance and start appreciating authenticity. And that's when your relationships actually get better, not worse. Here's how this all comes together in real life. My buddy Jake was dating this girl who seemed amazing. Sweet, caring, always texting him good morning. But something felt off, and he couldn't figure out what. Then he started watching her psychology instead of her performance. She was incredibly nice to him, but rolled her eyes every time the waiter came to their table. She talked about how much she valued loyalty, but constantly trash-talked her best friend behind her back. She said she loved how honest he was, but got defensive whenever he pointed out small inconsistencies in her stories. Old Jake would have ignored all that and focused on how good she made him feel. New Jake realized she was showing him exactly who she was, someone who was nice when it benefited her and mean when she thought it didn't matter. He ended things before she could show him her true colors the hard way. And guess what? She immediately started spreading rumors about him to mutual friends. That's the difference between reading someone's script and reading their psychology. Jake saved himself months of drama because he finally learned to see what was right in front of him. You can do this too. You just have to start paying attention. If this video helped you see something you've been missing, smash that like button and subscribe for more content about protecting yourself from manipulators and reading people like an open book. What's the biggest red flag you've been ignoring in your life? Let me know in the comments. Stay aware out there.